Okay. Members of our city council could not attend the meeting tonight. They had an actual prior commitment. Police Chief Marilyn Diaz had a prior commitment. Our good friend Jay Lopez had a prior commitment. He's presently in the city of Azusa. I'd like to give you a nice report. We have a good friend here, Mike McIntyre, and we had a meeting last week at his facility over on Santa Anita, and we're pleased to report that the idea that we presented in 2005 has been accomplished. We called it the Golden Triangle. That's the combining of the big Santa Anita Fire Safe Council with Mount Wilson, and the support group would be us here in Sierra Madre. Mount Wilson is starting their own Fire Safe Council. They have 50 transmitters up there, but only 3 people live up there 24/7. So we're out to help them with things of this sort, and other things are going very, very well. Also, we have a Fire Safe Council now in Malari Canyon. So we're getting more and more councils, and this is being so we can help each other on sharing ideas. On the schedule change, we were supposed to have a meeting with the U.S. Forestry during April, but we had a big fire in Sierra Madre. It was postponed. And that was pertaining to the gate closure up at top of Santa Anita. And that meeting will be held this Wednesday with Mike McIntyre and U.S. Forestry and all of these surrounding agencies. And what we'd like to do is expand our red flag patrol, because we have no idea how we're going to be utilized this summer and in the coming summers. So we're planning to expand our red flag patrol. And in the month of June, we're going to have a training session on Saturday. The date still has not been determined. But we're working on that so we become much more helpful for the city of Sierra Madre and the surrounding cities. With that, we all saw that rainstorm on May 22nd. We had showers in Orange County, lightning up in the San Fernando Valley up in the hills. It rained here, it poured in Duarte. The actual rain covered the sidewalks. There was so much water coming down. And we have all heard about the damage that was caused by the mud flows. We only had 1 3/4 inches of rain, but the mud did flow, and it did flow freely. So with that, we have a condition that needs to be worked on. With that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Bruce Inman, our Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you all for coming this evening. What I'd like to do is just give everyone a brief overview of where we are at this point, what we can expect in the coming months, and then at that point I will turn this presentation over to Chris Stone from LA County Public Works, who can give you a bit more details on the process of preparing your properties for the mud flows. The information that is in my report, it comes from a number of sources: LA County Public Works, the Conservation Corps, the Forest Service, and the National Resources Conservation Service. And I'd like to thank all 4 of those agencies for the amount of time and effort they've already put into assisting Sierra Madre. It's been a real help to us. Now, my presentation is based largely off of the map that you see here. This is a map that is prepared by LA County Department of Public Works, and it's a tool that's used for calculating the amount of mud flow that each of the drainage areas on the hillside will produce. This map is also reproduced at a different scale over there on the wall if you want to go look at that afterwards. The drainage areas that I'll be referring to in this presentation are all outlined on this map. The map shows 16 individual drainage areas which will discharge mud and debris into Sierra Madre. 5 of those drainage areas discharge directly into debris basins. So those 5 areas have a great deal of protection already built in. And we're not expecting to see a great deal of a problem with those basins. However, it needs to be understood that as those debris basins fill up with debris, the city doesn't get off scot-free. The county is going to have to get in there and clean all the debris out of those things, which is going to result in truck traffic and dirt deposits and those sort of things on the streets as they do their maintenance. One of those 5 debris basins may be, well, is actually calculated to be of inadequate size. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, and that will be a matter of discussion before the City Council, most likely next Tuesday night. However, 11 of those 16 drainage areas do not have any downstream protection. They discharge directly into public and private property. I'll just go through them quickly one at a time. Drainage area 3A is on private property, located at the top of the private section of Auburn Avenue. That's 6 acres, 83% burned. That's expected to produce 2,100 cubic yards of debris. Now, just for your own reference to picture how much that is, our standard 3-axle dump truck, we normally consider have a capacity of 10 cubic yards. So picture this as 210 truckloads of debris. Drainage area 3B is on 1 Carter. That's 5 acres, 100% burned, and 1,900 cubic yards of debris. That discharges into the partially developed site. This is another picture of drainage area 3B. Area 3C, also on 1 Carter. That's 12 acres, completely burned, and that's 4,500 cubic yards of debris. That discharges into a partially completed debris basin that's part of that development project. Another shot of Area 3C and the toasted cactus that's quite nice. Drainage Area 3D, 4 acres, completely burned, another 1,500 cubic yards of debris. That discharges into the main canyon on the 1 Carter site. That debris would be captured by the temporary debris basin that's on that property. Another shot of Area 3D. You can see in this picture, okay, wrong button, sorry. Down here is a temporary debris basin that's right at the top of Baldwin. Up here is the partially completed debris basin that will capture the debris from an upper area. Most of the debris that is going to come out of 1 Carter or drainage area 3 will be captured by the existing county-maintained Carter debris basin. That basin has recently been enlarged to meet current county drainage criteria. We don't expect to see any problem with the majority of the mud flow off of that site. Drainage area 3E, that is above Mount Wilson Trail, the private street. That is 17 acres, roughly 1/3 burned, and that's another 4,000 cubic yards of debris. That point of discharge is on the private, or on the public portion of Mount Wilson Trail, just above our reservoir project. Drainage area 4, that is Sturtevant debris basin. That is up next to Lotus Lane, above the intersection of Lotus Lane and Camillo. 12 acres, 3/4 burned. That site has the potential to produce 4,000 cubic yards of debris. The county debris basin holds 1,500 yards. Do the math. There could be a bit of a problem there. Drainage area 4A. This is above Stonehouse Canyon. 67 acres, 2/3 burned. Total of 20,100 cubic yards potential debris. There is no downstream protection on that property. Drainage area 4B, those of you that live along Woodland in the canyon enjoyed the proceeds from Yucca Canyon after this last rainstorm. That is where the majority of that debris came from. That is 18 acres, completely burned, 6,800 cubic yards of potential debris from that site. 4D, this is an area that's pretty high up in the mountains that It drains to a point of discharge at the intersection of Brookside and Woodland, 16 acres, 6,000 cubic yards of debris. It's hard to get an idea of how large this drainage area is. It's shown up here in this picture. Down here, for a point of reference, these are the homes along Skyland, and this is drainage area 4E above Skyland, which we'll get to in a moment. This is a close-up of that high canyon of drainage area 4D. This is where it outlets. This thing is about 4 feet wide, and it's highly unlikely that this is going to not get clogged with rock and debris if we get a major rainstorm. This will discharge mud and debris onto Woodland and Upper Brookside. Drainage area 4E, another problem area during the last rainstorm. This is 19 acres, 89% burn, and another 6,800 cubic yards of debris. You may have noticed, now you can see them now that the brush has burned away. This slope is covered from top to bottom with debris bulkheads that were constructed after the '78 fire by the Conservation Corps. I have applied for a grant from FEMA to get these cleared out and reset. That grant application has been denied at this point. This is a close-up of one of the bulkheads, full of debris. It's leaning over to the point where it may fail. This is a long shot of that entire area. You can see the bulkheads running from behind the homes down here on Skyland all the way up almost to the top of that ridge. The larger drainage areas, drainage area 1 behind Sierra Madre Dam, 153,600 cubic yards of debris. That should all be captured by that debris dam. But understand that at some point the county is going to have to be in there cleaning that 153,000 yards out. The way they get in and out of there is Canyon Crest, Skyland Drive, Idle Hour. There's no getting around this. The county is going to have to get in there and clean that basin out. Drainage area 2 is behind in Lannon Canyon, behind a debris basin. That's another nearly 26,000 yards. And drainage area 3 is behind. Expected to be captured by the debris basins is just under 238,000 yards. Basin, a whopping 1,800 yards. 1,800 yards. That'll give you an idea of the scope of what this burn area could produce. I'm not suggesting that it'll all come at once. Hopefully it will all come a little bit at a time like it did in these storms in May, but there are no guarantees. The reason I'm giving you this information is people need to understand the scope of the problem that the city has to deal with. We do not have the resources when faced with 57,000 cubic yards of debris from multiple sources to be able to provide individual service to every homeowner. It simply is outside of the scope of what this city, or frankly any city, can provide to its residents. I have 12 full-time employees. When we go to emergency operation mode, they work 12 hours on, 12 hours off. That means I have 6 employees at any given time to cover all of these problem areas that I have identified here. Again, for all of you to understand and to pass the word to your neighbors, we don't have the ability to respond to everyone that is going to be in need. It simply exceeds the scope of what we're able to do. During this first event, we got assistance from the city of El Monte. We got a crew from El Monte. They were wonderful. They did a lot of work up on Skyland and provided a lot of assistance up there. We also got a crew from the city of Arcadia. Understand that the city of Arcadia is going to need to be very concerned about Stonehouse Canyon, because that discharges town Stonehouse and directly into the city of Arcadia. So we can't expect the city of Arcadia to be able to assist us a lot. They may have their own hands full. Okay, back to our storms. This is a photo courtesy of one of the local newspapers. I wasn't out there to be able to take pictures, but this is the result of less than 2 inches of rain. This is the mud primarily out of Yucca Canyon. We got in there, we got it cleaned out as quickly as we could. There is still dirt in the street. There is still debris in the street. What is happening out there is residents are still shoveling the stuff out of their yards and into the street. That makes it very difficult for the Public Works Department to stay on top of the situation and to keep the street clean. I am continuing to get phone calls from residents wanting us to come out and remove sandbags. We're not advising that residents remove sandbags at this point. I must say that I know that there were those in the community prior to this rainfall event that were identifying me and others in the Public Works Department as Chicken Little. Oh, it's only June, it's only May, it's no big deal, it's not going to rain till October. Guess what? It did. There's no saying that it's not going to rain again before October. People need to keep the sandbags at their property so that they don't have to go rushing off down to the maintenance yard to collect them again. If you keep them at your property, you will have them for instant use when you need them. Again, my massive Public Works staff has got lots of other things that we have to do in this city, and we simply don't have the manpower to be out there providing that individual service to collect sandbags, knowing that in short order we may have to be delivering them again. So please understand, if you're one of those residents that has got sandbags in your front yard, you're best advised to hang on to them because you're going to be needing them again. In terms of preparing, I know that Chris Stone will be giving a little bit more detail, but many of you have probably been greeted by engineers from LA County Public Works. They're going door to door. Chris tells me that they've been to over 100 addresses already. They're providing sheets that look very much like this, giving individual advice to individual property owners how to protect your own property. And if you take anything away from these meetings with the Fire Safe Council, it is you need to protect your own property. The county is providing this service to you. They are absolutely expert at what they do. They do multiple fires every year. They've been doing this for a long time. Take their advice and work with them. They know what they're doing, believe me. Some of the things that you can do, they're outlined in some of the publications that are available. The county's guide is available out on the table in back. If we run out of those, the county will provide us more. I've also taken the liberty of downloading that same manual off of the internet where it's available. There's more copies of it out there if we run out of the little booklet. There's also, from the National Resources Conservation Service out there on the table, this item with the California Geological Survey heading at the top. That is a good resource for you as well. And if you don't live in the area affected by the mudslides, I've got quite the opportunity for you here. We're trying to establish a volunteer sandbag corps. We had a number of volunteers show up and assist residents along Woodland. I'm not sure whether they got out to Skyland or not, but we had a lot of volunteers out there helping to fill and place sandbags. There are sign-up sheets on the back table if you would like to sign up in advance so that we have a list of people that we can contact. Again, some more of the details of things that you can do to protect your property that are in the booklet and the other handouts. So, with that, understand, don't wait till October. If this storm that we had last week means anything, it means don't wait. Now's the time to get your property ready. Keep supplies ready and available, and whenever you can, assist your neighbor. You may know a neighbor that is not able-bodied, that is not able to haul 70-pound sandbags around. If you can help out there, I'm sure your neighbor will really appreciate that assistance. And with that, I'd like to turn the discussion over to Chris Stone from LA County Public Works. Okay, get Chris's thing going for me here.
There you are, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce, and thanks for everyone for showing up tonight and allowing us to present this to you. First of all, I'll go through kind of a quick presentation. It's really about fire impacts, and it's kind of generic in a sense, and then what I'll do is get into more details on what we think needs to be done in this community, in addition to the engineering advice that we've been giving out to the individual residents in the area. And also, I'll also turn it over to Alex Jarvie, who's with our flood maintenance division, to talk, so he can tell you a little bit about how they are going to operate during the storm season. Just talk a little bit about fire history. Our fire history we have on record goes back to 1890. On an average, we have about 26 fires a year. The greatest aggregate burn in a single season is about 114,000 acres, which is pretty large. On average, the burn area is about 20,000 acres. Fire occurrence interval in San Gabriel Mountains is 20 years, meaning that on an average you can expect the mountains here to burn once every 20 years. That's how frequently it happens. I put this map up here just to show you historic fire boundaries from 1890 to 1996. And as you can see, the red boundaries there are the areas that have burned through various fire events. As you can see, a lot of them overlap. In that period of time of 1890 to 1996, there was 1,850 fires. So you can see it's a very common occurrence. And what this map also shows you is that the San Gabriel Mountains, the Santa Monica Mountains, the Santa Susana Mountains, they all burn. Sooner or later, they're going to burn. That's what history is proving. Fire impacts. Of course, there's vegetation loss. I think we've all seen that on the hillsides. There's not a lot left in the areas that were burned. And then also there's a condition where the soils become sealing, or it's a hydrophobic soil condition exists. And what happens after a fire, depending on the intensity, there's actually an impermeable layer that's built up by the fire so that when rainfall falls onto the earth, it just runs off. It doesn't soak in at all. This condition can last for over a year. I went through and asked some of my staff to kind of calculate what we think the potential here is. After a fire event, burn flows usually increase from 10 to 50%. Is 50% greater than the non-burn condition. So you can see right there you're getting a lot of additional water. And then on top of that, you have the increased sedimentation. And with that, the burn flow rates can be as much as 12 to 100% higher. And in this part of the county, the San Gabriel Mountains here, is the largest debris production areas that we have anywhere in the county. Meaning that during a rainfall event on a burned watershed, you're going to get more sediment off of these mountains that are tributary to Sierra Madre than you will in anywhere else in LA County. So it's very, very significant. And as you've seen before, I mean, you've seen pictures of mud flows. This is a typical example of a mud flow impacting a residential structure. We see street flow, mud flow in the streets. Typically what our engineers try to do when they go out and give engineering advice is to direct all the mud flows that they can away from houses out onto the streets. Getting it into the streets, at least it's more manageable and you can come in and clean it up. One of the important factors in the engineering advice that we're giving is that, and I'll show you a little more over here on this map later, but it's really dependent on each neighbor implementing what's being given. Because if you have 3 or 4 neighbors who implement the advice that's given, then the next neighbor down the street doesn't comply with the advice or doesn't follow through with it, if you get a significant mud flow coming down that street, guess where it's going to break out? Where the sandbags are. And it can be really devastating. So it's really important as a community to work together to make sure that this advice is put in for the protection of the entire community, not only just your house. Because if there's someone up above you who doesn't do it and it's recommended, it could break out and go right through your house. Another huge impact for us is the effect on the reservoirs, our reservoirs. And in Sierra Madre, we only have the Sierra Madre Dam, which is no longer a dam, it's actually a debris dam. And as Bruce mentioned, it does have sufficient capacity to hold what we think is a design debris event. We cleaned it out last in 2005. So we think that facility is in pretty good shape to handle what could come to it this coming winter. Some of the remedial measures we're undertaking. In the county as a whole, we have 159 debris basins. So you can see for us, when we have large fire events where there's a lot of watersheds that are burned that are tributary to debris basins, and in Sierra Madre, as Bruce mentioned, we have 4 of those. But it becomes quite taxing on our flood maintenance folks to keep up with all of these. So we have 159 of those, and we have another 130 debris retention facilities, which essentially act as a debris basin. It lets the water and whatnot pass right on through the structure, but it captures all the debris. So you can see right there we have 289 debris retention structures that could potentially need cleaned out anytime during a major rainfall event. This is a picture of a typical debris basin. What you're looking at in the center of that picture is an outlet tower. The purpose of that tower is, and the basin is the sediment comes into the debris basin. It settles out, and then the water drains through the outlet tower into a storm drain system that takes it on downstream. And that way you remove all the sediment from the basin, from the sediment flows itself. This will be a very taxing exercise for our flood maintenance people, and Alex will talk a little bit more about that later. One of the things I wanted to mention when Bruce was mentioning Strudervent debris basin, which we believe is significantly undersized, only about 25% of the size that it should be for the debris potential to that area. How many remember in 1994 when we had the big debris flow that killed this father and son in Bailey Canyon? Remember what the weather was like that day? March 1994. The interesting part is that debris basin is adequately sized, but with that one debris event, the basin was full. And that was a very minor storm event. So it just shows you the potential is very high, and it wasn't a burned watershed. So that's why we think it's extremely important to try to increase the capacity of Strudervent debris basin, and we will be working closely with the city and hopefully get their concurrence to move forward with that project. What triggers a clean out of a debris basin in an unburned condition, when the debris in the basin has filled it to about 25% capacity, we'll bring in trucks and start removing that debris, usually in the summer or fall months. When you have a burned watershed, meaning more than 25% of the area tributary to the debris basin is burned, at 5% full, we will trigger our flood maintenance people to go in and start removing that material. So part of flood maintenance's responsibilities throughout the storm season will be monitoring those basins and making the call when it's time to start bringing in trucks to move the material out to restore that debris protection that facility provides. Again, here's the homeowner's guide. It's available, as Bruce mentioned, online. There's also a website. If you want to go to that website, you can write it down. It's available there. You can copy any of the pages you want off of it. It's a very good pictorial presentation of what our engineers are recommending out in the field. What you don't want to do, though, is take things that you see in this manual and try to implement them yourself, thinking that that's the right thing to do, because you may create a worse scenario. Meaning that if you think you're going to put a stack of sandbags somewhere to try to block the debris flows to protect your house, well, you may protect your house, but you might also flood your neighbor. Or you may cause a worse scenario to where it builds up and all of a sudden you have that structure give away and make the debris flow that much worse. When we have engineering advice, It's really to help redirect the flows. It's really not to block it, hold it back. It's really try to redirect it to where it's out on the streets where it's more manageable or away from the houses and structures. One of the things that we are also providing to the city will be all the sandbags that they need this coming winter. We'll work closely with the city on that. If they need more sandbags, we'll provide all the sandbags they need. But one of the things that we do recommend and I know Bruce is going to have them stocked at various locations with the city, but we do recommend that unless you have an engineering advice form filled out by one of our engineers that specifies how many sandbags you get, that the city not release more than 25 bags unless you have that form. And again, the reason is because we want to make sure that you are using those sandbags appropriately and not potentially causing a worse problem. One of the type of structures that we'll often build in a burned watershed is, this is what we call a rail and timber structure. And we place that across the bottom of a water course. Typically they can go up to as much as 12 feet high. They're really, we call them rail and timber because they are rails. They are train track rails that are placed vertically, that provide the vertical support, has a poured foundation underneath. And the boards, as you can see, that go horizontal in the structure are spaced to allow the sediment to move into the structure and the water to flow through the rail and timber structure. Again, on this picture, you are looking at the downstream face of the rail and timber structure, so the debris would be caught on the other side of that structure. And in Sierra Madre, I think we are looking at working with the city and some potential private property owners to install maybe as many or five or six of these devices to provide some additional protection. And again, these would be major flood control facilities that would be installed by the flood control district. One of the things that you will see is the engineering advice. Again, this is a pipe and timber type structure. As you can see, it tries to keep the sediment out of the house and directed around the house. So this would be kind of typical of what you might see on an engineering advice form or being asked to be implemented as part of that advice. And these are kind of the sandbag structures that are, you see them all over the place. These are about as high as you can go with sandbags. You get too high, they become unstable, but you can usually get them about 4 or 5 high, and then after that you need to look at some other type of measures. But I think mostly what you're seeing on your engineering advice forms are either the pipe and timber that was in the picture before, or the sandbags that this is kind of typical of. And again, here's another one showing how the sandbags are kind of channeling the flow between these two structures and on out into a public street. This is actually in the Valverde area. I don't know if you remember back in 2005 when they had that very severe mud flow in the Valverde area where it buried a bunch of homes. Again, it was not a burned watershed, but it produced enough debris flow that it caused significant damage to a lot of homes. And another measure that we typically implement or recommend to be implemented are the K-rails. These are the reinforced concrete structures that you see on the right-hand side of the picture there. And again, the idea of that is to help direct the flows through the community. These are pretty substantial type measures, and it really, we would recommend this where we have pretty high debris flows that we want to push by a particular building or a series of buildings. And again, there are several places in the city where we are recommending this type of structure be installed. And we'll work with the city on that. Okay, before I turn it over to questions, I want to talk a little bit about this map, and if you'd like, you're welcome to come up and look at this map afterwards because it has a lot of detailed information on it. This is an aerial view of Sierra Madre. And what you see here, well, here's Sierra Madre Dam, to put it in perspective. Here's Auburn Debris Basin over on this side, and Landon Debris Basin is over on this side here. The red area is the fire boundary, so everything up above that is burned. The black lines that you see on this photo are what we do when we start calculating how much debris is going to come off of a watershed. Well, we have to figure out what's the tributary area that's tributary to a particular water course. So these black areas represent the area that's tributary to a downstream channel. So this, as you can see, is a very large area tributary to Sierra Madre Dam. And that's what Bruce was talking about when he was talking about those various sub-areas that had burned. On this map, you will see that, and we're continually upgrading this map as we get more work done out in the field, but after we get this completed, we'll give it to the city, and the city can post it or whatever. But on here, we have all the houses that we've already given engineering advice to, and if you look at the map, there'll be a series of pink houses down through here where we've given engineering advice to all of these people. We've given engineering advice over here below this Stonehouse property. Over in here, we're working on the Skyland area up in here. They were up in this area again today, and I think we got about another 10 or 15 homes left. If you haven't been given engineering advice and feel like you want someone to come out and take a second look, sometimes we'll overlook things, but if you feel like you're threatened, please give us a call, and I'll actually give you my phone number. I don't remember Loretto's, but give us a call and we'll go out and come out and take another look for you. My phone number is 626-458-6102. And with that, we'll come out, take a look, and tell you if we think you have a problem, or if we don't think you have a problem, we'll let you know that as well. The other things that we show on here are the areas where we are calling out for those rail and timber structures that we saw. We have one here. This is on the Carter 1 property. So we're proposing 4 rail and timber structures on that area. We're proposing other rail and timber structures, also the K-rails. You can kind of see what our master plan is up here of what we think needs to be done to try to put in place as much protection as we can before October 15th. And in a way, we're fortunate because we have a little bit of time before the rain starts, but when I say a little bit of time, it'll fly by, and I know it'll be here probably before we're ready. And we are really needing to hit this stuff as hard as we can and get it implemented as quickly as we can to try to get the protection in place as quickly as we can. Some other things that we are doing or will be doing, actually we've already done this, we'll put together what we call mud flow phase maps. And with what we do is we work very closely with the National Weather Service and seeing what the forecast for rainfall is going to be. And we produce maps where we think there are going to be sediment problems based upon what the rainfall conditions are expected. And again, it's a 24-hour rainfall that we're looking at. So we are putting together these 3 maps. We call them phase 1, 2, and 3. And in a phase 1, meaning that they're predicting a ½ inch or less per 24 hours, and we'll actually map out where we think there will be debris problems with that type of rainfall. And then our next phase, phase 2, is anything from 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches of rain in 24 hours. And again, we'll map out where we think the debris problems are going to be. And the third phase is anything over 1.5 inches in 24 hours. So as you look at the sequence of maps, we'll notify the cities and all the emergency response teams and personnel, letting them know what we think that the phase will be of a particular storm, and then they can kind of plan around that. But as you know, weather forecasts aren't always that accurate. Sometimes we hear major storms coming in and it doesn't rain at all, and other times we hear all the storms broken down, it's not going to be anything, and then the time it gets over the San Gabriel Mountains, we get a real large storm event. So, but it is a planning tool, and it helps the emergency response people kind of plan what they were going to do depending on what the rainfall forecast is. So we will have those online available. We will give copies to the city. We'll give copies to the police department, fire department, whoever needs them, so they can use that as a planning tool. So with that, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I'll answer some questions in a little bit, but first I'll turn it over to Alex Jarvie with our flood maintenance division, and he will talk a little bit about what they are planning to do for the upcoming storm season and during that.
prepared, such as Bruce or Chris had, so I'm kind of shoot this one from the hip a little bit. First, I would like to kind of ditto what Bruce has told you this evening. Heed is warning. It is going to be serious. You know, people that live in critical areas, burn areas, where he showed you the figures of the debris flows, it could get bad. It could get very bad. Bruce talked about his employees. He's got 12. I've got double that. I got 24. But I don't take care of the Sierra Madre. I got all of Altadena, Temple City, Rosemead, San Gabriel, City Terrace, El Sereno, Glendale, all very large areas. And there's duties and responsibilities there as well. So we're shorthanded too. I do have resources I can call upon if things get real bad, but still, everybody's kind of fighting the same thing. Responsibilities as far as storm duties, we've always patrolled the area, all of our debris basins in the area. I have quite a few more in the Altadena area. We patrol them. I think I send out 4 patrols, and again, it's 24 hours, 12 on, 12 off, but there's crews constantly going. For the fire area, we did produce what we call a hotspot patrol. We will be patrolling on a round robin type deal, all the flood control facilities that are in the burn area. So we'll probably monitor them, I'd say at least once every 45 minutes to an hour, as long as we can get to them. Just as the last little storm event up Sierra Madre Dam, we tried to respond up there and couldn't get through. Not even, we have 2 access areas, one below the dam, up Woodland, and then the one above, what's the street that goes up to Sky, to the top of the Sierra Madre Dam, and couldn't get through. The lower road on Woodland was flooded with the mud. The upper road had fire, evacuating homeowners, I guess, or providing assistance, whatever. The road, it was just too dangerous to even go up there. The hillside had come down, rocks and debris all over the road, so I wasn't about ready to send my guys up there, you know, in the path of danger. So that Sierra Madre Dam was kind of a critical point as far as I'm concerned, and the lower area below it. So as far as like I say, the hotspot patrol, we will be looking at it, you know, very closely throughout all rain events. As soon as it starts raining, we're on it, and we don't stop patrol until and monitor the condition until the rain has stopped and the flows have stopped. Even though it stops raining, we still have incoming flows into the debris basins and the dams. So you know, we monitor it to make sure everything goes safe. If it's not safe, we get warnings. So. I really don't know much about the structures where they're going to be built yet. I haven't got that information. So I've been in the county since 1970. I've built plenty. I've spent all my county career in the foothill areas and at dams. So we're familiar with how to do and what to do that type of construction and the structures. So I think we can get that done quick enough. They just built some, like you're saying, up North County. They just built 4 structures, and they did it in pretty good time. The crews really got in, and they got it done before the critical storm and the season came in and provided the protection. So, any questions or?
Just one other comment. Of the 4 debris basins in Sierra Madre, there's 2 of them that currently need to be cleaned out because of the burned watershed condition, and that would be Lannon and Auburn debris basin. Both of those have passed the threshold of being more than 5% full with a more than 20% burned watershed. So flood maintenance will be scheduling that work, and I think what I heard is probably August, September, you'll see trucks start rolling in there to make sure that those are all cleaned out all the way to the template. So.
More information than I have.